Otherwise known as Kalavati Devi, and welcome to Tuesday night Kali Ma studies. So tonight we are going to be covering verse 35 from the Kali Sahasranama. But before we begin, I wanted to discuss some of the things that are coming up, especially astrologically. Now, naturally, I'm not an astrologer, but when we're talking about Kali Ma, it's important for us to understand very special windows. And one of the special windows for Kali Ma are eclipses. And tomorrow we're having an eclipse. So today is August the 11th, 2026, and we're going to be having an eclipse tomorrow. We have a new moon, and it's going to be a solar eclipse. And Kali Ma is honored during eclipses. So it's a special time to go inward and re-strengthen your relationship with Kali Ma. Now, we have the eclipse coming up tomorrow, but we're also going to have an eclipse again in 2 weeks. They're always 2 weeks apart, one on a new moon, one on a full moon. So like I said, this upcoming one is going to be a solar eclipse. And, I was debating whether or not to talk for very long about the eclipses, but I have written blogs about different types of suggested etiquette for during eclipses to prevent energetic disturbances. Jema kaku karima, jema chozet jema. So tomorrow, the eclipse. What are some different things that are wise for us to do during and not only the actual eclipse, but the eclipse 2-week cycle and before and after? So number one, it's a really good time to go inward and to evaluate how are things happening on the inside, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, interpersonally, socially, and just observe. But during the eclipse, which will be tomorrow day, it's best to avoid major conflict, avoid starting anything major and new, avoid signing big contracts if you can avoid it, and keep a more calm, reverent mind. So there's different mantras that are really wonderful to chant during an eclipse day or even during the season. One, Gayatri mantra, asking for the mind to be stable and illuminated. But there's many, many others. But when we look at the eclipse season, we ask Kali Ma, what am I willing to sacrifice an eclipse away from me? Maybe it's an attitude, maybe it's a feeling, maybe it's an attachment to something, maybe it's a food item, maybe it's a habit surrounding lifestyle. Lots of different things to consider, but this is a special time to do so. And it's a very powerful time right now, too, because we're in the month of Shiva, Shravan, right? And Shiva, we have a lot to do with the concept of discipline and order and bringing a sense of structure to our life, maybe restructuring, revisiting, etc. All right. So let's go ahead and take a look at the names for this evening. Like I said, we're on verse 35. But before we do that, let me pull up my document here and let's do our prostrations also. Jai Ma Dhruvi Ma, Jai Ma. All right, let's bring our hands to heart center. Take a big deep breath in. Clear and ground your energy 2 more times. Inhale big. And another one. Om Gam Ganapate Namaha. Om Gam Ganapate Namaha. Om Gam Ganapate Namaha. Om Gam Ganapate Namaha. Ekdantaya vidmahe vakratundaya dhimahi thanno tantihi prachodayat. Om Namo Bhagavate Ekadamsraya Hasmukaya Lambudharaya Ujjisa Mahatmane Om Krom Brim Gege Swaha. Jai Ma. All right, Jai Ma. Let's take a look at our verse for tonight. So it's verse 35 of the Kali Sahasranama. And Sahasranama, if you've been following along, has 1,008 names and forms of the Holy Mother Kali Ma. So tonight we're going through and starting on name 267 and then finishing verse 35. So let's listen to what the verse sounds like. Bhrāntirbhavānī rudrāṇī mṛdānī śatrumardinī upendrāṇī mahendrāṇī jyotsnā candrasvarūpiṇī. So let's look at each one of these names and see what kind of special energy of the Holy Mother is coming through these names. Namaste, Jai Ma, Journal of Stitchery. Halloween Iris, Groovy Ma, it's almost birthday time. I know it's a little bit early, but you can never be too early for Halloween. All right, so name 267, Bhrāntihi. This is listed in the puja book as she who is confusion. She who is confusion. Or we also understand the word Bhrāntihi means illusion, perplexity, uncertainty. It eludes doubt or even hallucination and bewilderment. And I have to ask myself, why would Kali Ma create bewilderment? We've talked before about Maya and illusion, and that sometimes it's a form of protection or a placemat to hold us somewhere. But why bewilderment? And when I think about bewilderment, sometimes different moments that I have felt the most bewildered caused my attention to stop and pause and wonder. You know, what's the fine line between wonderment and bewilderment? And bewilderment oftentimes draws you in. You want to know more. You want to make sense of it, or you want to discover something deeper. So Bhrāntihi, Kali Ma, who brings bewilderment. Ask yourself why. Why do we have bewilderment? Name 268, Bhavānī. Bhavānī, where's Bhavānī Ma? There's a beautiful song that I absolutely love, and it says, Bhavānī Jai Jai, Bhavānī Jai Jai, Bhavānī Jai Jai, Bhavānī Jai Jai. It goes on and on and on. And Bhavānī in the puja book is defined as she who is manifested existence. But let's look further at Bhavānī Kali Ma. Bhavānī is the name of the goddess of existence, the source of becoming, the giver of life. And Bhavānī is also revered as the protector of families and children. So Bhavānī Ma brings blessings and courage and strength, especially to overcome challenges. Now, according to the Skanda Purana, let me look at my story here that I wrote down. In the Skanda Purana, there was a sage Kardama who passed away. And his wife, Anubhuti, sat in deep meditation and retreat. And that was on the Mandakini River. Well, there was a demon, and he was causing troubles. His name was Kukur. And he began to disturb her prayers, but also her safety. And at one point, Anubhuti cried out to Bhavānī Ma, and Bhavānī Ma swiftly came to her assistance and gave her protection, as well as banished that particular pesky demon. So Bhavani Ma, there's many stories about that form of the Holy Mother bringing protection. Now, name 269, rudrāṇī. Rudrāṇī, she who is the energy that removes all sufferings. And rudrāṇī is one of the saptamatrikas. So a lot of times when we're studying Kali Ma, we have the saptamatrikas. Sapta is 7, or the ashta matrikas, the 8 mothers. And there's different festivals during the year that they're really brought forward and revered, and rudrāṇī is one of them. And rudrāṇī is specifically revered in the Shiva Purana, the Vayu Purana, the Linga Purana, the Padma Purana, the Devi Bhagavata Purana. And she's the acclaimed wife of Rudra Shiva. So rudrāṇī, Rudra Shiva. And Rudra means terrible. Rudra means the howler. Rudra also means the frightening one. And rudrāṇī is considered the ugra, or more fierceful form of the goddess, the Shakti of Rudra, the fierce howler. And she is called upon to destroy misfortunes. Rudrāṇī Ma, to destroy misfortunes. And there's also an Ayurvedic plant. You know, that always catches my eye. And rudrāṇī is an Ayurvedic healing herb known as rudrajata, or Aristolochia indica. It's also called Indian birthwort and duck flower, and it's specifically used to treat snake venom, like venomous bites, as well as intestinal parasites, pain, and inflammation. Chema. All right, name 270, mṛdānī. Mṛdānī. In the puja book, it is listed as she who is the rhythm of life. But mṛdānī also stems from the verb to squeeze or to press. And mṛdānī is the Shakti, or wife of Mrda Shiva. And there is stories about her temples that open to the west, that is guarded by Indra, who is shining brightly. The whole temple is shining brightly with utmost riches. That's what it says in the stories. And it's interesting because Shiva is also known as mṛdānī, the female synonym name. And mṛdānī incarnated as Sati. So we told the story of Sati several episodes ago, and it's interesting to look at all of these connections of how one person is known by the other name, and then it just keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller until we have some of the biggest names like Shiva, Parvati, Kali Ma, etc. Okay, name 271, śatrumardinī. Śatrumardinī. Now remember, I always put the names in the comments. Today I didn't have everything typed in there, but I do have the names. And if you want to see like the spelling and the grammatical markings for proper pronunciation, it's included in the description. So śatrumardinī. This is defined as she who is the destroyer of all enmity. Or we can look at śatrumardinī as she who crushes or destroys all foes and enemies. And shatru means enemy or adversary, and mardini is the feminine form who crushes and destroys. All right, we have a couple more names. Name 272 is upendrāṇī, upendrāṇī. So Kali Ma in this name and form is she who is the highest energy or the ruler of the pure. Now, when we look at this name and form, upendrāṇī, she is the Shakti, the consort, the wife of Upendra, who is specifically Vishnu or Krishna, and the young avatar, in the avatar of the younger brother of Indra. So these names are all tying back in together. We have Indra and Indrani and upendrāṇī. Upendra is the younger brother of Indra. And when we hear the name Indrani, which we've covered before, we know that she is the Shakti of Indra, and that Indra is the god of weather, lightning, war, but also protection and cosmic order. So Upendrāṇī, again, is the name of an Ayurvedic herb, and it is also botanically known as Vitex nigundo or nirgundi, and it's used specifically for anti-inflammatory properties, analgesic, so it's a pain reliever, antipyretic, it reduces fevers, antimicrobial, antiviral, so it helps fight off pathogens. It also is helpful in respiratory disorders, liver conditions, wound healing, and treating skin disorders. So upendrāṇī, she who is the highest energy and pure ruler, and also a healing herb. All right, 3 more names in this verse. Name 273 is mahendrāṇī, mahendrāṇī. And this is she who is the great energy of the pure. In mahendrāṇī, again, we have the combination of the name Indrani, Indra, but mahendrāṇī is great. So we have Indrani, we have upendrāṇī, now we have great mahendrāṇī. Pretty simple. Now name 274, she who radiates light. So the name is Jyotsna, Jyotsna. And this is she who is the moonlight. She who is the glow or the radiance of the moon. All the brightness, the cool flame, the clarity, the radiance, and the celestial lights, not only of the full moon, but the dark moon. Tomorrow is going to be the dark moon, so technically tonight is the dark moon. We talked for a couple moments at the beginning of this discussion how the eclipses are highly dedicated to Kali Ma, and so are the new moons. So tonight will be a new moon. The apex of the new moon is technically tomorrow at about 10:30 a.m., something along those lines. So tonight will be a very beautiful opportunity if you want to do moon gazing or just observing the illumination, jyotsnā, of the dark sky. But remember, I don't recommend stargazing during an eclipse, so count that out. All right, and then the last name for tonight also has to do with the moon, number 275. The name of Kali Ma as candrasvarūpiṇī, candrasvarūpiṇī. So we know svarūpiṇī is the form, the the embodiment, the essence of, and that Chandra is the moon. Chandra is specifically the moon god. So this is she who is the intrinsic nature or intrinsic form of the moon, and she who is the luminosity of the moon. So I hope that all of you have a wonderful eclipse season coming up. Take it easy, really observe things. And if you're going to be doing some mantra or meditation practices, this is a really, really good time to do it, particularly just prior to the eclipse, during the eclipse, and after, through this whole 2-week period, and even post. So I hope that you all have a wonderful evening. Thank you for joining. If you haven't subscribed already, please hit subscribe, because I'll be back here every Tuesday night, 6 p.m. Pacific Coast time, to complete the 1008 names of Kali Ma. All right, everybody. Jima. Jima.